Could you tell me now? You have one of the oldest galleries in Holland, I believe, or maybe even
On the continent, yes.
Could you tell us a little about that?
My ancestors started with restoring paintings, big canvases, and later on they besides restoring, they started buying and selling pictures at the time, and we're talking about 1790 already. In 1805, one of my ancestors founded the firm by becoming a citizen of Amsterdam, which you was sworn in, and you have to defend the city in case of war. And then you could start a firm by starting to be a member of the St. Lucas Guild. And St. Lucas Guild is the Painters Guild, but it contained in those years so many other professions, like booksellers, printers, and so on. So that was done in 1805 on the 5th of September. So that in fact is the grounding and the founding date of the firm. From then on, all the little bits and pieces they left the gallery, and we're more and more my father, my grandfather, and my great grandfather started choosing pictures from the way they could handle them at that time. There were different times than now, and also started buying modern pictures, which are now the romantic painters, which we sell now for very high prices. But in any case, the selection of paintings just was grew over the years. When my father had a feeling for the 17th century Dutch and Flemish landscapes and interiors, and my grandfather was a man who loved etchings and drawings, which I took over from him. So we have etchings, drawings, we have 17th century Dutch and Flemish, we have 19th century romantic paintings, French Barbizon pictures, pre-impressionists, Hague School, and that in fact brings this collection to the widest you can see in the trade, from about 1500 to about 2000. That's approximately what I can estimate it down to.
Now, your son is also in the business. What is his specialty?
His specialty is, among others, first of all, the knowledge of the other schools, which you pass on from one to another. And his specialty is the Russian section, which you find at the back, which he started sort of slowly about 13 years ago, buying pictures on the English market, making a small exhibition in Holland, which then was very successful. And from then on we had built up contacts in Russia itself, outside Russia in America, where the trade in Russian paintings is a much larger one than people imagine here. And so we buy straight from the sources by having a few scouts in Russia who then go to the various artists and know exactly what we like to have. Then they show it to us, and we can then buy and make and select the pictures we want. The picture we don't want, we don't have to buy. They then sell them to somebody else. So what we do is select pictures that are connected with the figurative art over the centuries that we dealt in. And so you can find an interior like that, which is by Van der Poel, which is 17th century, and then you can go to the Russian section and find a similar interior, which is then dated 1952, for instance. Most of the Russian paintings, which is his own choice, are painted between 1945 and 1970. In order to get them to Holland, you have to have an export license, which then the Russian sellers arrange. We don't have to do that. They arrange that with the Ministry of Culture in Moscow. And in fact, after that, it takes about 2 months to get them. Then they bring over the pictures, and then we start restoring them, because they need restoration. Most of them are sort of very filthy, and they have little bits and pieces that have to be done. The stretchers are always very bad wood, and so on. And we frame them and clean them and restore them. And then we present them in this special pan exhibition, which contains now about 66 pictures which hang over there. And then the interest is so big that during the fair we sell about half the collection. And then over the rest of the years we sell then the other pieces that we've shown in this particular year. We make then small brochures, which mostly are sold out by the time the fair is over, but that's all right. That's what they are for.
Now you have a lot of very beautiful 17th century paintings here. Is the 17th century still as popular as it had been, and why is it so popular still?
Why is it so popular? Because it's always been popular, right from sort of 1750 onwards. Before that it was popular in its own country, but then around 1720 the sale rooms started sort of growing, and the way to sell through a sale room was then becoming more popular. So it then became more international. But even in the 17th century itself, there were agents, like a man called Peter Spiering, who scouted in Holland the pictures for the Empress Katharina of Russia. And for instance, she was very interested in painting by Gerard Douw or Frans van Mieris or Felix Wouwerman. And then he used to go to the studios of those particular artists and then select. For instance, Gerard Douw obtained 1,000 guilders at the time, a very high figure, which you have to sort of multiply by about 250 to get a sort of a buying value of it. He got 1,000 guilders of from Peter Spiering, because he was never allowed to sell a painting before Peter Spiering had seen it. And so when the picture was finished, he said, "That's not for Katharina. You can sell it again, but you have to select for her." And that is the reason why also around the 1700 the Dutch interiors, landscapes and fine painting went all over Europe. And that is why it has become so popular in the later centuries, and it still is. The only thing is that in this market, the 17th century sort of was left behind a little bit about 10, 15 years ago, where the French Impressionists and the more modern paintings of the Fauves and the Parisian school, they went sky high in prices. So after the very high prices of this particular area dropped a little bit, people started looking at the 17th century. So they picked up. So now there's a whole bunch of collectors all over the world that give very high prices for the excellent quality of the very fine little pictures. And among those you find Jan Bruegel's landscapes, flower pieces by all the artists, winter scenes, which have always been very popular. And they were always much higher in price than the ordinary summer landscapes. So the 17th century is really coming back in a very strong manner.
I noticed one of yours, the highest priced one, is by a woman over here.
Clara Peters, yes, she was in her time also very popular already. But she was, I don't know what happened, she came from Antwerp and then went to Amsterdam because she became a bit poor at those days, and then she started selling through the Amsterdam market and then picked up again and made a little more profit and then became better and better. But her greatest period is the Antwerp period, sort of between 1610 and 1625. And she was even in those days very popular and obtained very high prices. But now her very meticulous and beautifully finished articles, and like this painting here with the nuts and the beautiful glass there, is a very high figure. You can't get around that.
I noticed also that some of those romantic 19th century paintings that you've displayed here commanded a good price. Is the 19th century romantic school popular now, Dutch painters?
Well, it used to be popular about 40, 50 years ago in countries like England, Holland, a little bit in Germany, and then it was finished. Now, the 19th century Dutch romantics are sort of popular all over the world. In America, they have collectors that buy them. In England, very strongly, and in Germany, Switzerland less, France also less. But in Holland, there's a lot of money also to be spent. And you find, for instance, like in the last two sales in Christie's and Sotheby's about 3 weeks ago, some of the prices were ridiculously high. But not only there. In New York, they obtain sometimes even a higher figure than here. And why is that? Because European fine art dealers, when they sell well, they have to buy new stock. And they make a trip to New York to a sale and they find good pictures. They're always willing to pay more in a New York sale than to buy the picture in London or in Paris or in Amsterdam. So at times you find very, very high figures for 19th century paintings abroad. But that's also because it become world popular.
I noticed in your booth it's unusual because you've actually put the prices of these paintings under some of them. Is that what is the motivation there?
Oh, that's my personal opinion is that this is. If you are in a gallery, you come into a gallery, you don't have to see the prices there because the owner can do what he likes. The moment you start making a fair where everybody can come in and you can compare prices, you have to compare prices, compare pictures, you have to be open. You have to be open towards your clients. And the openness doesn't finish with just putting up a picture. You have to give the information known about the painting, about the artist, and the price. And it's been my opinion to do that, and I've always, in actual fact, always done that in the last 45 years in fairs. My colleagues weren't always very happy with that, and at times I had to fight for it to keep the prices on. But now you find more and more people do it, and I think for the people for the lovers of art, because I assume that everybody comes in here wants to have or see something or buy something and have to know the price. They don't have to always ask the price. If you put them on the label, it's good enough for me. And if we have in this area about 200 pictures hanging, and I think I have got a list of 8 pictures which are not priced.